Hi, I'm Johnny. This is Johnny Likes, the show where I talk about movies that I like. And can you fine folks truly believe that Heat came out 30 years ago? Yeah, I know, we're old.
You tell him, Johnny. You tell the world.
Is this the best cops and robbers movie of all time? Probably, possibly, maybe. For me, personally, it's a toss-up between The Usual Suspects and this, and I think I said that in my Usual Suspects review. Shout out to me. But it's not my most watched genre, so I'm not like an authoritative voice or anything. Spoilers to follow. This is going to be a super long, super rambly review. Much like the movie, it is sprawling and epic. Or that's what I'm going for. So why is it so good? What worked for me? What did they do well? Yada yada. Let's start with the bank robbery in downtown LA. It's possibly the best bank robbery ever put on film, at least for my money. It's intense, ferocious, edge of your seat, mayhem. All the good adjectives just thrown right in there. Pulsating, ticking clock / heartbeat synthesizer score. Check. Guys getting into plays, putting their masks down. Check. Subduing the populace and authority figures. Check. Short civics lesson.
We want to hurt no one. We're here for the bank's money, not your money. Your money is insured by the federal government. You're not going to lose a dime.
Weirdly, yes, check. Smacking a guy and telling him to just sit there and let it bleed.
Sit there. Sit there. Don't move. Let it bleed.
Check. Cops get tipped off by a criminal informant.
Hey, Casals. You guys working the case on the Neil McCauley? This CI Hugh Benny called in about a bank they're looking at or something?
Far East National Bank 1130.
Check. Kilmer is the last one to get into the getaway car. Kilmer's face goes from, "Nice, we made it!" to, that was my gun sound that I've made since I was 5. Speaking of gun sounds, okay, I'm going to derail the whole conversation here. This is the rambling part of the review. So, the gun sounds in this scene are awesome, right? I don't know why they're not the standard sound for all gunshots from this movie forward, no matter where they're placed. So how did they get those gunshot sounds? I always thought it was like a Michael Mann secret because the only other place I saw it was like Collateral and another movie called The Way of the Gun, weird enough. So how they got that effect in this movie to make it sound so good was instead of doing the usual thing that they would do, which is to Foley in some sort of simulated gunshot sound afterwards, they just used the ambient sounds they picked up on the mics that they had set up on set for dialogue and whatever. It's as simple as that. Just use what was recorded. That's why it echoes so much. That's why it's so boomy. That's why it sounds like frickin' cannons, because that's just what it sounded like there. But I digress. So we're at the shootout. Guns are ablazing. It sounds great. From here, there's lots of shooting, lots of running. I'm not always sure where the guys are running or why, which was kind of a pet peeve of mine about it. Climaxes with De Niro and Kilmer just getting away after stealing a car. Oh yeah. Lots of bang bang, lots of running. Check, check. Ultimate climax of the scene is Pacino shoots Sizemore while he's got a girl as kind of a human shield. So anyway, the whole thing is like heart pounding and adrenaline filled and just overall awesome. I can't think of a bank robbery as intense or realistic before this on film. Like, this was the new benchmark for how good a heist / robbery scene should be. So if you haven't seen this movie and you've made it this far into the review somehow, I suggest you go check out the bank robbery scene. It's on YouTube. I'll probably have a link in my description. Okay, welcome back. Here we're talking about the acting / cast of the movie. Top-notch cast doing top-notch acting. It's one of those movies where if you're a film buff, you'll look at the list of actors on paper and go, wow. And if you are not so much a film buff, but you've seen movies, you'll do a lot of pointing and saying, hey, that's that guy or gal from that thing. Like Natalie Portman following up The Professional with this at the age of 14 proved two things. First, incredible talent. Second, probably going to be a huge star.
What's going on?
Felt like being alone.
And although it was a pretty small part in the overall movie, I thought she knocked it out of the park. Wes Studi and Ted Levine, mostly known for playing villains in Last of the Mohicans and Silence of the Lambs, respectively, play cops in this, which I thought was an interesting thing. Since the audience, me, recognizes these men from these other movies as dangerous men not to be trusted. And so we never really see the police as a whole as necessarily the good guy. I don't know, that's just my half-baked theory. It could also just be a complete coincidence, and that man just liked these guys as actors and wanted to have them in his movie. Either way, the kind of 6 degrees of separation and connecting the dots that may or may not be there thing kind of makes my film nerd brain go into overdrive. So let's talk about De Niro and Pacino. I've seen a large chunk of both of their catalog. Not everything, but at least 60% maybe. And I think they're both at the peak of their powers here. They're so good.
How you doing? What do you say I buy you a cup of coffee?
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Pacino reminds me of a big dog who has caught the scent of some prey in the woods and it's driving him insane. And De Niro is like a big cat who will wreck you without hesitation, but is mostly calm, methodic, and patient. So the story, it's intricate and complex, but not needlessly so. You can follow along easily enough, even though there's tons of kind of interlocking characters. I first saw this at probably 11 years old, and I didn't have any trouble following the story. There isn't even any third-person narration. It's not needed. Every time I've watched this movie, I've just been instantly sucked in and paying attention. My brain can't help but pay attention to this movie. I had no desire to pull out my phone to even look up, oh, who's that actor? I know who most of these people are. But the point is, I was never ever bored. Even this last time watching it, I didn't plan on watching the whole movie. The only reason I was watching it was because a guy at work started talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I haven't seen that in a few years. And so I started watching it. I was like, oh, I'll make it up to the bank heist, watch that. Once that was finished, I was hooked. It didn't matter if it was way past my bedtime. I was going to watch the rest of the movie right there. And one element of the story that I loved was that you're not cheering for either De Niro or Pacino. You're watching both sides, and you're kind of cheering for both sides, even though you know that only one can ultimately triumph. It's just a well-crafted crime story overall, and I'm not even going to try and go over the story beats, because it's pointless. I miss things. You'll see in my complaints, probably. And you'll answer in the comments going, yeah, idiot, it was right there. The pacing in this is actually amazing. Now, as I've mentioned, I've seen this several times over the years. I remember the first couple times, I found that it had a little bit of leg, especially when it came to the relationship stuff. After the first couple watches, though, those emotional pivots and valleys, instead of seeming like missteps, they now seem masterfully placed. Much needed respites from the ultra macho, testosterone filled rest of the film. The look of this film is gorgeous. It does not look like it was filmed 30 years ago on film. It looks like it was filmed 5 to 7 years ago digitally. The color palette and the way that Los Angeles was shot at night is kind of the gold standards for how your movie should look. Big set pieces aside, there were many kind of little moments that had excellent cinematography and camera work and lighting and all that jazz. And it elevated them to have like maximum impact. For example, when the LAPD are watching Kilmer and De Niro break into the, metal place, and you see De Niro's face in heat map. It's great. Just that little thing, his face with the... That's awesome. Another standout is when Waingro is talking to the young sex worker, and you see his eyes, and they're just fucking dead. And oh! Like, it gives me chills just thinking about how good these shots are, and how they just make a scene. Let's talk about the women in this story. For the most part, this movie is about unfixable men with deep-seated issues. Kind of like how the old saying goes, for every strong man, behind every strong man is a strong woman, or something like that. In this, we see a couple of those strong women and how they try and deal with their wild-ass men. And the most poignant to me, and coincidentally kind of least fleshed out, was between Dennis Haysbert and his significant other.
Get tired of what that motherfucker does every day.
Baby, can you just handle it till we find you something new?
And when we see De Niro pull him in for the job, and then he gets killed doing the heist, and we see her trying to meet him at the bar, and sees the news on TV.
Yes?
And her face, just fucking devastating, right? And that's one of the great things about this movie, is that we didn't need all the back and forth. We got just enough detail in there. We don't need a little monologue from her, or to see her stumble her way to her car and then just lose her composure and just completely lose her shit and break down. No, we don't need that. We see it all on her face in like a 3-second shot. And shout out to that actress. I'm very sorry I don't know your name, but I will chuck your face and a little who ya are right beside me. Ashley Judd got at least one really good moment, and that's where she waves off Kilmer. And you can see her face there, and then the next kind of ensuing scene, that she can't help but love him. And she hates that she can't help but love him, and can't even quit him completely. Yeah, that's good. You felt that. And Pacino's wife, also again, sorry, don't know your name offhand. Character name here, because I don't want to just call you Pacino's wife, gets the most moments, as she is realizing that her and him are fundamentally flawed as a pairing, and that they aren't gonna work out. She gets some nice jabs in there, dialogue-wise, kind of cutting stuff.
On it. And I bought into that sharing because I love you. But you have got to be present like a normal guy some of the time. That's sharing. This is not sharing. This is leftovers.
I see.
You've been walking through our life dead. And now I have to demean myself with Ralph just to get closure with you.
Sure, the women aren't the focus of the show, but they are important aspects to the story, and they do hold their own in the scenes that they do get. So what's not to like? What didn't quite work? The end chase scene on foot between De Niro and Pacino was ridiculous. At any point, De Niro could have just ducked behind something, got the upper hand on Pacino, ended it. And Pacino lost sight of De Niro like right away, and he's just following nothing. Yeah, I just didn't buy that. It eventually did work out once they did get behind the pillars, bunkers, whatever those airport-y things were. But it was pretty sketchy for a while. Come on, you watch this scene again and you admit that it's not got like more running than a Tom Cruise movie. Waingro, being a serial killer, added nothing to the story. It was pointless. They didn't do anything with it, other than underline that Waingro was a really bad dude, which we already understood. It also seemed like De Niro was the type of character who would vet a new guy on the crew pretty heavily before he would let him in on a job. And so Waingro even working with these guys seemed a little bit of a stretch to me. A few things I was unclear on. One was being how Waingro got in touch with Van Zandt. Now I know there was that scene at the bar where Waingro got a number from a dude, but that didn't seem like the type of work that Van Zandt might have been throwing out there. I don't know, maybe I missed something, maybe I'm just misreading it. This is something I definitely missed, but who was the CI who informed the cops about the robbery? Was that supposed to be Hank Azaria? Was that supposed to be Tone Loc? Who did that? Honestly, answer me in the comments. I don't know. So I figured out who the criminal informant was. It's supposed to be Henry Rollins' character. How he learns about it, I don't know. Another thing was I also didn't buy that Edie would agree to move to New Zealand with De Niro. Is it romantic? Yeah. Is it believable? No. Is it possible? I guess so. If they were both in their 20s, I might have bought it, but they weren't, so I didn't. When they robbed the bank, how did they all leave the building without incident? I'm sure there's a plausible way, they just didn't show it, and it kind of always stuck out in my mind. None of these are huge deals at all for me. The only thing that kind of bugs me is actually the end scene with De Niro and Pacino where they're just running. Anyway, none of these are huge deals, and it just goes to show that no matter how good your movie is, there's always some little thing that'll just not quite work right. Rating and summary. It's a 5 out of 5. Those little nitpicks there, they're not enough to take anything off the score here. I enjoyed it too much. It gets better every time I watch it. It's aged like the finest wine. I thought it might feel dated. It doesn't really. Like some of the suits, goatees. Yeah, okay. But it's 30. It's 30. Think about that. It still seemed remarkably fresh, is what I'm saying. And I wouldn't change a thing with it, apart from just tighten up that end scene with the running. And I was thinking about this, if this had been made today for the first time. It probably would have been a limited run, either Netflix or Amazon Prime. 6 to 8 episodes, about an hour apiece. You'd get more backstory into Van Zandt and spend more time with Waingro. You might even get to learn a little bit about Trejo. They called fucking Trejo. Come on. This feels like the edited down version of that show. And that's not a complaint in the least. That's a compliment, if anything. I think we got the best possible version of this story. Would it have been nice to have seen more backstory and fleshed out characters? I'm sure, absolutely. If it was up to this caliber of writing and general film production, yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Did it hurt the story that we didn't get it? No. So those are my thoughts on Heat. This is like my 5th time trying to film this, and it's just gone off the rails every time. So I'm just going with this version of off the rails. So there's the end of my review. You like that? Like and subscribe. You want to see more? Like and subscribe. It's quick. It's free. It's relatively painless. Helps me out. Thanks for watching me talk about movies for a little bit. Long bit today. And you can tune in next time to see what else Johnny likes.